they can. Stixay's got to kite this out, but Contract does too much damage, and it's a 4v3 advantage. Cloud9 Smithy next up on the table, and that's all she wrote. 4-0 to end week 2, undefeated, undisputed first place in North America.
I think we should talk a little bit about.
Oh, hello, and welcome to week 2 of LCS Tonight.
What are we talking about, Hans? No one told me we were going on.
Hey, look, we're just having fun here. We're going to have some fun with you guys. Joining me on the desk is Sam, Kobe, Hartman, Kenzor, and Isaac, Azale, Cummings, Bentley. What up? The two men with the longest names on the LCS broadcast team.
Well done, then, Dash. You're earning your money
I'm
today.
proud of myself. I screw up my own name half the time, so the fact that I got through that, that's a plus. Let's take a look at the standings after 2 weeks of play before we get into anything else. Up here at the top of the table, Cloud9 still undefeated, but they did have a tough series today. See, I'm already screwing up words. Against CLG, whereas Phoenix won FlyQuest TSM, they're in that second place position. Envy all the way down to the bottom, still looking for their first victory of the split.
I definitely wasn't expecting to see CLG all the way down at the bottom coming into the season, and some teams on the up and up, Echo Fox deserves a lot of credit for their performance this week.
Absolutely, the 2-0 week for them. But let's kick things off with another team that had a 2-0 week in TSM. They played Friday and Saturday. What are our thoughts on this squad rebounding from a 1-1 in week 1?
I think they looked a lot better, a lot more decisive, and we did see the success of Bjergsen kind of coming back. He was able to play very well and got a lot of help from the top lane, too.
Definitely. I mean, everyone's going to point to the Ryze ultimates. Very creative usage from Bjergsen. The shot calling was definitely a key issue that people were looking for the team to improve on. So many people were harping on, double lift's not on there. He was helping so much with it. And that was one area that they improved on as well. Right here on your screen, though, that man Hanser.
Sick Nautilus mechanics.
Definitely a big play as far as the roam pressure towards that mid lane.
And one thing that was really good to see for TSM fans this week is that they didn't just play through Bjergsen. Through multiple games, they were actually, camping top lane, going to the different lanes, trying to get people ahead, and then kind of being able to transition that lead to Bjergsen. So it wasn't just the Bjergsen kind of like 1v9 type.
Right. Of course, in interviews, they were still discussing, though, that is a hurdle for them and probably their biggest obstacle, rather, to success is that with the loss of double lift, they're still struggling for some direction sometimes within the game.
And one of the big things that Bjergsen always talks about with double lift and how he helped him with shot calling was the creative shot calling. We would open his eyes to other opportunities. Looks like they
embraced the game. Pretty creative.
We like to see that. Another team, and now let's talk about this one that went 2-0, is Echo Fox here.
And Echo Fox, they looked dismal coming into this weekend. And not only did they show us cool picks, like the Camille support, that, by the way, blew my mind when that was happening. I didn't know what was going on with that draft. But
you should have seen Mark and I were writing down all the picks and stuff for pick ban, and he gets through it all, and he's like, okay, wait a second.
I'm like, is this Swain
Camille support,
Camille?
I could see your brain exploding on the cast. It was absolutely hilarious. And then, he gets that comical first blood. It's working out into the game, and you go back and you look at it with a more calm mind,
makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. Makes a ton of sense. They were able to outthink the bait there from Lemonation, where Lemonation always loves giving over, power picks, thinking that he's, forcing your hand into this position. Mm-hmm. And they switched the table on him, flipped it right around with this, switching it to support.
The biggest thing for me, though, to talk about Echo Fox as a serious point is that we talked so much last year about how these guys don't do anything. They just sit around, they wait to win or wait to lose, right? They're not willing to make risky plays, decisive calls. And Echo Fox today and the last 2 games against Dignitas yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, they were actually making stuff happen. They were decisive, they were able to snowball leads. Even when behind, they were still willing to make plays, risky or otherwise. And I think that showed that they are actually finally maturing as a team and realizing, hey, this is where we've gone wrong.
And it's another case of multiple players stepping up in that position, right? Yeah, Froggen, the rapid fire cannon on that TF game, he was making pick after pick to, help the team along in the late game, but also Acadian, a new guy on the block for them. I know he's super nervous, but he's doing great, and he's improving each day as well.
I was going to say, week 1 to week 2, you looked at the top performers on Echo Fox. Week 1, you say Acadian, and then maybe Froggen right behind him. The rest of them still not up to par. Week 2, though, here we had Looper performing in the top lane, putting a lot of pressure down with things like Swain pick in the top. That's unlocking them to put the Camille into the bot lane, where Gate, who's been practicing this since his days in Korea in solo queue, And he brings that in. It's a great counter to the Malzahar, right? We had that Jin Camille pickup, which allowed them to get onto the Malzahar and break that shield very early. So I love to see that innovation out of the squad. We'll see if the evolution of Echo Fox continues and they continue to push the pace. Now let's get to this series that just ended, C9 versus CLG. This was a big one. Went to the third game here. CLG almost took it from C9, but they will remain undefeated.
They really did, and it came down to the wire in the final game. I think there has to be a couple questions about the Katarina pick into Maokai and Lulu, both two champions who perform exceptionally well at locking down that champion. You can't Zonias when you're Whimsy, right? So Aphromoo played very well into that, but at the end, I think we just saw that C9 was a superior macro team. Like the ZZ Rod moving around the map with Impact, they just seemed to kind of have them a little bit outclassed.
That, as well as the team fighting, there were a lot of very exciting team fights in this game where, working around the fact that you may not have such a reliable tank or everybody going all in when the cooldowns, you're tracking just not even ultimate cooldowns, but like these basic ability cooldowns, finding your window, sneaky for sure on the AD carry, finding those small opportunities to get out a little bit more DPS so that you can set up your assassins for reset. Like, there are so many really interesting team fights there.
The last couple team fights played by the damage dealers of Cloud9 were exceptional. Sneaky in particular, just in terms of maximizing his damage output while and then staying alive as long as possible was ultra impressive.
One thing, though, as a bright spot for CLG, we did see kind of the return of Aphromoo as a playmaker, having some good roams, having a much better performance, I think, this week than last. So CLG, they lost to C9 today. They're 1-3, but they could have very easily been 2-2, and C9 is the best team in the league.
Right, and that comes from CLG's bot lane actually succeeding a little bit more in the 2v2 itself to unlock Aphromoo to get to that mid lane. I think that's a big thing. Huhi as well had some positives, some negatives still. We're waiting to find some consistency with him. But if that trio, Stixxay, Aphromoo, and Huhi, can really level up, then CLG might get back into the top 5.
And finding consistency, I think, is a theme for almost every team in the NALCS right now.
Except Envy, they're very consistent.
Pretty much every. Big burn!
C9, boom.
But honestly, yeah, we're seeing a lot of jumbling around because there were so many off-season moves, right? And there's a lot of improvement to be had for most of the teams. Actually, all the teams.
Yes, absolutely. Well, after an exciting week 2 of the North American LCS, we've had some standout individual performances. Who are your guys' OP5 of the week?
Spoiler, there it is on the screen.
Them. Beat me to it.
Exactly. So up in the top lane, a lot of these we did have a lot of debates on. This is just going to be this week we're definitely looking at. So Haunter from the top side, like we said in that replay that we had, he had a lot of the roams towards mid. People helping out Bjergsen. Maybe it is a big burden to have the solo shot calling on your shoulders, but people are doing that, lending him a hand to alleviate that as well.
I'd also say he showed up well against Someday in lane, going even or winning lanes, was able to transition his leads elsewhere on the map, so a lot of credit to him. And in Nori, this guy was 26-4-17 this week. Like, what is that? That is ridiculous.
He went insane this week, had multiple games where he's legendary, really hard carrying. That being said, they did have, on paper, they did play Envy, so you say that one's a bit of a weak one, but they've made Team Liquid look like a super easy team just today, and that was a sincere blast.
I think one of my favorite moments of the week was Jad asking him, what did you think about the Rengar pickup? And I appreciated them letting me have that 9-0-7, like just running amok.
That's the thing, because right now the state of Rengar, everyone agrees, okay, super strong. If you're trading that, you better get something good back. But there are players that have been playing Rengar since he came out, and Honori is one of them. He's one of those guys that was almost considered a one-trick in solo queue at one point. And he definitely showed he still has it.
One guy I got to give a little bit of a shout out to that almost made the OP5, I think, is Moon. Moon gets a lot of flack, and this week his scoreline, even with a loss, and with your team losing, it is very hard to put up incredible scoring.
Azale was very adamant that he wanted to give extra credit for looking good in losing games. If your team
I think that's hard, man.
So,
it's easy to play with all your lanes winning.
But look at that scoreline.
He was 40-12-34. The guy was going nuts. Even in both his Eve games, his team lost, and he was like 7-1, 8-3. His team was not giving him the help he needed, Kobe. And when they did, he was 9-0-8 on Kha'Zix.
And I love that when they come outside of the Rengar and the Kha'Zix, S tier for junglers, he's finding a little niche pick for himself that's gonna make other teams think in Champion Select.
Yeah, and I just want to say, the other side of that is like, It's something that I used to do when I knew that I was going to have a rough team in solo queue or something. I'd pick Shaco because I knew that at least I look good because I can go invisible. I just go assassinate people and then I'm out of there. So my score looks good at the end and all that stuff.
Oh, you gotta get a little shot.
It can go both ways.
That's Kobe. All right, well, let's talk about, I know we already talked about the fact that Nori is the OP5 Jungler of the Week. Let's talk about him a little bit more just as an individual outside of his sheer performances. I mean, this guy has really grown an extraordinary amount split to split, it seems, just in the way that he leads the team. This team is filing in behind him on Phoenix 1, and they're finding a lot of success.
And I mean, even in the way he conducts himself in the interviews and stuff, he's trying to bring a new, mature side of himself. He's saying, hey, I'm not a toxic jungler. I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna lead the team.
Yep.
And he's showing it inside the game and outside the game.
Yeah, I really can't say. There's a tremendous amount of improvement from him. People can point to, yeah, his team is better, so it's a lot easier to look, better this split as well.
Yeah.
But it's about working with that team. That team environment is due to him as well.
Yeah, another rookie jungler that's been performing quite well, Acadian over there on Echo Fox. Again, we said he was a top performer in week 1. Well, now in week 2, off of the back of his early game aggression, they managed to pull off a 2-0 week.
Yeah, and I think the first series against P1, he looked really, really good. Against FlyQuest, he was held down by Moon a little bit more, but Acadian has been performing so well, and he's a big part of the whole kind of attitude shift for Echo Fox because he is bringing the aggression, he is bringing the playmaking to these games, and people are kind of playing off that, feeding off that, and you're seeing the rest of the team get involved.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not going to have every game be perfect game or get first blood every single game, even though he's getting pretty close.
Yep.
But yeah, he's definitely super impressive, especially if you consider the fact that he is a rookie and he is new coming onto this team. So definitely some props to him as well.
And just there in that clip right there, you saw 4 different champions being played. Rek'Sai, Kha'Zix, Lee Sin, and Graves. So, I mean, this guy is comfortable on many champions, which a lot of times when you see a rookie come in, like, say, Inori, when he first came in, like, well, this guy's a Rengar one-trick. How's he going to do on the rest? Acadian's doing great on the 6th pick, jungle champion.
Especially important now that we do have the 10-ban system, and we have seen teams, specifically against Team Liquid, targeting Reignover, trying to shrink that champion pool. So if you don't come into the league with that versatility, then it can be punished.
Now, pocket picks are much more important too now. Eve, we've seen that shining. We've seen Jensen playing different stuff. Shem for impact. I really think that makes a big difference.
Last player we got to talk about is Bjergsen, and specifically the Rise ults that came through. Again, you talk about what this team needs is more creativity in their shot calling, and this time Bjergsen finds it with the Rise.
I think that one is just such a great example. Immediately into the Baron, take it, no response. Yes, this one is a little bit more common where we have seen teams do this already, rushing towards the Nexus. But really, he took that one step further with the one to get the Baron, right?
Now let me ask you this. I know Rise is already fairly high priority for a lot of teams, but does seeing utilization of the ultimate like this increases priority for other teams now that they have a better understanding after watching this series how to use the champion?
Well, it's pretty interesting because especially after the Europe, EU LCS, they also had quite a few of those types of plays on display. The more people see those, I feel like they saw that one and it kind of got him to think about other ways to use it, and that's where the Baron one came from.
Gotcha.
So people, the more you do them, the more people expect them. It's just like the Kindred ultimate Smithy did at MSI.
Oh, on the global objective.
On the Dragon, right? They're like, oh, wow, yeah, you can do that to deny, bait out the smite, and stuff like that. So then people started expecting those plays more. So there is this race between playing against those plays, or more people doing them.
And I definitely think just over time, people have gotten better and better at not using the Rise ult. When we first came into the league with the new Rise update, people weren't even skilling the ultimate. Now people like Ryu as well, using it for constant roams to bot lane. It is really powerful if you can use it well.
Now, throughout the day, we've been taking your questions on Twitter. First up, Taven Smith asks, who is the team that truly looks like they can compete with Cloud9 right now? That's not CLG, because they were close. Didn't quite get there.
Hey, they competed.
They did compete, right? So I guess if that's the context of the question, then there's your answer. But,
I mean, technically, every team is going to compete with them at some point.
I think honestly, like if we're looking at it and we're being serious about it, TSM to me is starting to look a lot better.
Yeah.
If they're on form, they certainly can compete. I think Phoenix 1 has looked quite solid, and they can compete. There's a number of teams. The field is pretty wide open, and C9 did not look invincible against CLG.
Yeah, that's the thing. There are some front runners right now, and you can mention the teams that are looking better. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like there is a team that's on the same level that you would put on the same tier, right? I think we all have them in their own tier.
Right,
currently.
they're clearly the number one. You're looking at maybe TSM, P1 as the ones that can closely contest them. Next up is Jay Mango, who asks, what do you think are some of the patterns in drafting that top teams do and the bottom teams don't? This is a pretty big question.
To me, one of the biggest things, if you look at C9 compared to the other teams, it's the willingness to adapt, right? We're seeing way too many teams, in my opinion, with just the same 3 red side bans, no matter what, no flexibility, no creativity in the draft, and you're seeing teams that really have a lot of success. Yes, you can kind of criticize and say, hey, the Katarina pick didn't work that well for C9 today, but they're the only people playing Shen, first people playing Taric, mid Echo, mid Fizz. They have all kinds of different picks that work in different situations, and I think we need to see more teams adapting these sort of strategies. Even FlyQuest, I think, is doing that very well too.
Yeah.
The teams that are at the top are understanding the draft, and the teams that aren't, not so much.
And understanding the draft, the tools that you have at your disposal, the flexibility of your players is just so important. You know, we keep talking about Reaper. He's just such a great coach, you know, and he's really hard to draft against. He also has players in all positions that can play pretty much every single champion that is powerful right now. And then you really put so much importance on flex picks. You know, we went over the obvious ones like Malzahar and stuff like that early on, but flex picks, especially early on, have been playing a very big role.
I was gonna say, you can look at C9, I think, as being one of the best drafting teams in North American LCS, and when you consider the fact that Smoothie can play things from Taric to Tom Kench to all of the more poke and mage-oriented supports, whereas Jensen can play almost anything in the mid lane, you've got a lot of options if you're Reapered, and you're happy to have the Shen in the top lane when all the tanks are banned out.
Also, update your list of flex picks. Camille,
Support, check.
can go to support.
I already know Zyrene plays in the jungle, so we got 3.
The best drafting team is the one that has a support player that plays Camille. Next up, it's Narwhal, who asks, who is the most underrated player in North America? So we're only 2 weeks in here. 2 weeks in. Who do you think's not getting enough credit?
The hipster vote. I love these. Like, who can get more hipster?
I got one. Go. All right,
let's go.
Okay, I think that it's hard to say for sure, but I have 2 that I want to talk about. I think Moon and Gate both actually not getting a lot of credit, and Gate is going to get more of attention now because of this weird pick. But even while Echo Fox was getting blasted, and you know, not to pile on Keith, but he is considered, you know, really at the bottom of the tier of 80 carries. I still think that Gate has looked good. If you watch his individual play, I still think he's been solid in all the games. I have been impressed by him, and Moon 2 really has like improved massively from last year to this year.
And Gate's just so damn lovable. Kobe, who's your underrated player?
I was spoiled on his hipster underrated picks because he was talking about them all day long. And I do think that there are some people that will definitely agree with you.
Ooh, some people, but not Kobe.
Not everyone.
I would. One I feel like I haven't seen a lot of people talking about is Arrow.
Oh, yeah.
Which is surprising because especially considering the 80 carry pool in North America right now, you know, there isn't a whole bunch of depth there. And for me, every time I watch him play, he's landing almost 95% of his skill shots, just super accurate. He's putting out really high damage per minute in his team fights. It's not like he's this huge flashy player or he's double lift on the front lines with Lucian trying to get in there. It's not the meta right now, right? And he fits into this Ashe and this Varus, and he's been very accurate. So I feel like that's a good one.
Files in there behind Ryu and Inori to be a really solid third carry for the team in the current meta, but I have confidence that he'd be able to make the adjustments if need be. That's going to be it for week 2 of North American LCS Tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.